The numbers come out. Now, this is where normally we'd say, boy, what that moment of great elation and joy, but it wasn't that for you, was it?
No.
No. Talk about that.
In letter, like the first paragraph, it was, you have not passed the New York exam. Your score is 260.
Okay.
And as you already stated, the minimum score is a 266.
Okay.
So it was a brief moment of defeat, but knowing that I received a 260, I was still eligible to waive into 5 or 6 other states. So essentially, I did pass.
You did pass. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to Hanging Out with Successful Bar Exam Takers. And we have a really interesting story today, a little bit different than some of our other interviews, but one that I think you're going to find incredibly helpful and encouraging. With us today is Julie Miller. Hi, Julie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Your situation is very different in the sense that you sat for a bar exam and you didn't quite hit that goal. But because of the uniform bar exam, you're actually going to take your score to another jurisdiction and become a member of the Missouri bar, correct?
Yes.
So congratulations. That's really cool. And we could just talk about the fact that you're going into Missouri and you're going to be a member of that bar, and that would be a great, great story. But I asked you specifically to join me in this interview because I wanted to talk about the journey you've been on, because it had some bumps along the way, and what you've accomplished and the strategy that you took and how we got to where we are today. So we sort of started with the end. Now we're going to back our way up. And so I'd love it if you would just tell our audience a little bit about yourself and kind of how your journey with the bar exam began.
Okay. Well, as Jackson already said, my name is Julie. I went to Florida Coastal School of Law. I graduated last year in July. I sat for the Florida bar. I unfortunately didn't pass the Florida bar. Then I sat for the Florida bar again in February. Unfortunately didn't pass again. So I decided to take the New York bar. I'm originally from New York. What I want to do in terms of law is I want to be in-house counsel, corporate counsel, something along those lines, not necessarily be in the courtroom. I don't want to be a prosecutor or a defense attorney. So I figured taking the UBE would be my best option. As long as I get those letters behind my name, I think my whole outlook would be better.
Yeah. And so you're still in Florida, right? Living in Florida?
Yeah, I'm still in Florida. I'm in South Florida.
Okay. So just to sort of back it up for everybody, you went to a law school that doesn't have a great track record on the bar exam, candidly.
Right.
And you came into the course and you worked hard on the bar, right? I mean, can you talk a little bit about that first try on the Florida bar?
Sure. I started the program a little early. I was still working on studying for my finals, and thinking about it now, maybe that wasn't the best time to start studying because I was kind of distracted. All of my friends at that point were taking the big box bar review, and our school had actually paid the students to take that kind of thing, so we didn't have to pay out of pocket. It was inclusive.
Right.
I did the best that I could. I was working 2 jobs at the time, and I didn't know what I was going into when I was taking the exam, and I bought the photo reading package, and I had some trouble with it to begin with. And Jackson, you know that because I even told you, it's like, I don't think I'm doing this right. I think I was focusing too much on the whole photo reading process itself and not just letting it go.
Yeah. And letting it go is really critical with photo reading, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So towards the end, the last couple of weeks of studying, my scores started going down, and I had a lot going on at that time also, but I also had friends influencing me of, well, here, try this practice exam, or try this, and I think putting everything together collectively, ended up, that was the reason why I didn't pass.
Yeah, I think you were in a really difficult physical and emotional space right before the exam. It was really tough for you, and I think it's a good sort of object lesson for people that too much input sometimes is bad, right? I mean, too many voices in your ear saying do this or do that, and you were getting a lot of those, and your law school was pretty aggressive in what they wanted to say, and,
right?
So there's a lot going on. Now, you also went in and then did the best you could do, and you didn't miss by very much, did you?
No, I don't recall what my first score was, but I want to say it was within 5 points
Yeah. So,
overall.
so reasonably close. So the results come back. It's disappointing. Uh, what's your thought process? You've taken it. You've failed by the 5 points. You've had this experience. Now what?
I sulked for a couple of weeks because it's just one of those feelings. It's you can't describe it unless you experience it.
Yeah.
And it was just I was very, very hard on myself in comparison to all of my family and friends that they're like, you'll get it next time. And,
Yeah.
you know, but I always try the best that I can and I push forward. And I decided after those 2 weeks or so of moping in my own sorrows that I was going to take it again. I wasn't off by that far and I knew the material. I didn't apply it right is
Mhm.
the whole thing.
Okay. So emotionally, getting back in to study that second time, pretty tough, wasn't it?
It was. But the positive on that was quite a few of my friends that were the voices in my ear, they had already passed.
Hmm.
So I didn't have them saying, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that." And it was better in that aspect. But jumping back on board, it was difficult.
Yeah.
But once I got in the transition, it became a lot easier. Just it was the whole scheduling since I had just moved. I had started my new full time job. It was not legal based at all. My prior job was, so I felt like at least I had some kind of legal knowledge when I would go to work and then I would come home and I'd be able to transition pretty well. And it was different this time.
Yeah. And did you use photo reading the second time?
I did.
Yeah.
And I didn't stress the whole method that Mr. Shealy had gone through. And
Right.
you learn to adapt to your own method with photo reading.
Hmm.
And I figured that out the second time around.
Yeah. So it felt more comfortable, a little more natural.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah. Okay. So now you sit for the bar a second time, and what happens?
Well, during the bar the second time, I had gone in for day one and my computer had some glitches at the end of that day. I went to upload and my essays were not uploaded until after the deadline. So I was in panic mode and had to arrive to the exam on day two early to speak to exam soft reps and all of that. And they assured me everything was fine.
Yeah.
But that kind of threw me off to begin with.
So it was a
And
late night on Tuesday night for you, wasn't it? As I
that,
recall, you were like in high panic mode on Tuesday night
yeah.
because of the upload problem, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then going in on Wednesday in the morning, I had that whole sigh of relief because they said everything was fine. But then during the afternoon in Florida, they ask if anybody has a defective Scantron, all of that, please raise your hand. I, of all of these, 3,000 students, had a tear in my Scantron. So they came down, they issued me a new Scantron, new test booklet. I'm filling everything out. Then in the middle of that, they came back down again, gave me a new Scantron again because they said that it didn't match. And
For the third time, right?
for the third time.
Right. Now, for those that don't understand, what Julie's talking about here is that there's a form of each exam. So Julie's taking the afternoon MBE, but the people on either side of her have the same 100 questions, but in different orders. So there's a different form of the Scantron. And in order to know which Scantron matches up to which booklet, there is a coding process. So
Mm-hmm.
there's 3 versions of the Scantron. They gave you, you started with version 1, they gave you version 2. That doesn't do you any good. You have to go back to version 1, right? So now your third time into it, right?
Right. And at that point, I figured, I was the only one in there that happened to. They had it all taken care of. I didn't say anything afterwards. I figured it was fine.
Yeah.
So I waited so many weeks, received my results, and lo and behold, my score on the MBE was the lowest that I have scored, whether based on my practices, the prior exam, all of that.
Didn't make any sense. So
No.
here's the again the object lesson for other people, and it's not that we're trying to use Julie as the object lesson, but here you go. If something weird happens to you at the exam, okay, the best advice is to file a formal written protest of the scoring at the site before you leave. It's really intimidating. In a state like Florida, they don't make it easy at all. There's no one suggests that to you. No one even offers that opportunity.
Mhm.
You have to go to Michelle Gravani basically and say, I am protesting this and I want to write it down and put it into writing. Because, as you discovered when you got your scores back, what could you do about it?
Nothing. I mean, I did end up sending my written letter saying,
Right,
I'm going to pay you to rescore this, hand
right,
score it.
right.
I pinpointed all of the issues that I had during the exam, and pretty much in the nicest terms possible, it was tough luck, and we'll hand score it, and that's about it.
Yeah, sucks to be you.
Yeah.
And so you don't get anything.
No.
And so this is really, I mean, this was just devastating news because I knew how hard you'd worked, and I knew, in my sense, and my sense was you were ready to pass the second time. You had set yourself up well. There was no reason to think of it differently, and the multi-state score just didn't make any sense. I mean, it was a weirdly off score, uh,
Yeah.
which still makes me think that the version of the Scantron may not have been
Right.
written. Okay, so now you've spent a year taking the Florida bar unsuccessfully.
Right.
Um, I imagine there's a part of you at this point, Julie, that's thinking maybe I should just give up entirely. Maybe this is like not for me.
No, I did have those thoughts, especially since, like I said, I moved down to South Florida. I started a job that doesn't require you to pass the bar. It's a legal alternative career, and there's really no incentive for them for me to pass it. It
Yeah,
was more, it's for me.
right.
But I had those thoughts, and
Well, so but you didn't. You went on.
yeah.
So I'd like to kind of dive into where did you find the desire and the drive to do this again? When we're not even talking about which jurisdiction yet. We're just saying I'm just going to get back into it again. What was the process in your mind at that point?
Well, it was more of I went to law school. I've been so focused on this since I was a teen. I want to be an attorney. I don't want to just sit at my job, no offense to them. I don't want to just be there for the rest of my life.
Sure.
I want to practice. And in order to practice, I have to have some type of license. So,
Okay, so you kind of steel yourself. Now what? Are you going to sit for the Florida bar exam again or do something different?
well, I was toying with the idea, and that's when I gave you a call.
Mhm.
And I mentioned the whole UBE idea and how I'm from New York originally and my whole career path and what I'd like to do. And you were actually the person that kind of helped me with that decision because I was on the fence
Yeah,
of what I was going to do. So,
yeah. The reason that I suggested it was that it seemed to me that you were perfectly capable of passing, but that Florida was now in your head. It was going to be really tough to make that work for you all as much as we wanted it to. And since you didn't need to be in a courtroom in Florida, why not give yourself the widest opportunity in terms of scoring? And since you're from New York, you could sit for the uniform bar exam, and that score would be transferable across the country in now over 30 jurisdictions, I think, depending on what you got. So if New York has a passing score of 266, if we were putting Florida on the same kind of a scale, I guess we would say Florida's score was 272, so 136 on each side, but very different exams. So not fair really to compare them, but you needed a 266 in New York. So now you're ready to go back and you start to study for the New York UBE exam in July of 2017. Can you talk a little bit about what that study process was like?
sure. So I was still working full time, and my whole schedule would consist of I would go to work, I would come home, I would study for a few hours, and that was pretty much every day of the week, except for on weekends, I would study more. What I found easier with studying for the UBE was I didn't have to differentiate between state law and common law or federal rules of evidence, something of
Yeah,
that nature.
right.
So for me, I felt it was more of a sigh of relief in
Mhm,
a way.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to not have all the Yankee go home questions and the nuances of Florida law and the nitpicky stuff. So that definitely helped. Did you use photo reading this time?
I did.
Yeah. So now you're kind of into the photo reading. You're photo reading your outlines. Some of them are repeat because it's multi-state, but there's some subjects you haven't seen before that are on the UBE that aren't on the Florida exam. So there's a little bit, I mean, conflicts of law. There's some things that are a little different. And then there's some things like domestic relations that are generic in the UBE versus Florida law
Mhm.
specifically, right? Or procedure,
Yeah.
which is federal. So that process is a little different. And you've had these couple of exams behind you. You studied for probably about 3 months, 3.5 months, right? And nights and weekends, right? Plus the full-time job.
Right.
What's going on? What's going through your mind during this process?
It was exhausting.
Yeah, yeah.
But the more that I photo read and the more that I went over the material, I realized more so. I knew it. It was just more of a review. It wasn't gaining substantive material. It was I knew this. Like, I wish I would have applied it better.
Yeah. Okay. So now you're ready. It's time to go up to New York. Did you take the test at the Javits Center, or were you at another location?
I flew up to Buffalo. I had a
Buffalo.
friend that lives in Buffalo, so
Okay.
yeah,
Buffalo in July, folks, is a lot better than Buffalo in February. Just saying.
definitely,
Yeah. Okay.
definitely
All right. So, and that's a little smaller location too.
different, like set up there in comparison to Florida.
Yeah.
I
Talk about
can't
that a
even.
little bit, would you?
Um, there's a lot of people. There were more people I felt that were in that building, but they were separated into different areas of the building.
Yeah.
They provided box lunches that you could prepay for, so you wouldn't have to leave for lunch or any of that. They didn't have the metal detectors that they do in Florida. And it was more lenient when it came to if you have to use the restroom or anything of that sort.
Yeah. The whole
The
checking
people
in,
there
checking
seemed,
out, raising your
yeah,
hands.
right,
Yeah.
right.
And the proctors weren't coming over and leaning into your face during the whole time?
No, and actually on the last day, one of the proctors came over and she was handing out lollipops to everybody.
There you
Oh, we
go.
were allowed to bring water and a snack that was a non-crunchy snack.
There you go.
Oh,
Okay. So it is possible to run a bar exam in a humane way.
yes.
New York has proven that. Many other states have. Florida, you might want to take note. All right. Now, you sit for the exam, 2-day test. You've used the skills. Now you're waiting. What's the waiting like at this point?
Oh, the waiting on this exam was brutal
Yeah.
because our results didn't come out until the last week of October.
Yeah.
So I have all my friends that took the Florida exam. I have friends that took different state exams. My friend that took Missouri, she got her results,
Yeah.
and I'm just still in limbo.
Yeah. And the way that New York does bar results is that without warning, one night at midnight, you get a little pop-up in your email, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
I had received mine probably around 11:45 on, I
Yeah,
believe
okay.
it was a Tuesday.
Yeah, so I call it my spidey sense. I had a spidey sense that day that the results were going to come out. Turns out my spidey sense was right. The numbers come out. Now, this is where normally we'd say, boy, what that moment of great elation and joy. But it wasn't that for you, was it?
No.
No. Talk about that.
In the first paragraph, it was, you have not passed the New York exam. Your score is 260.
Okay.
And as you already stated, the minimum score is a 266.
Okay.
So it was a brief moment of defeat, but knowing that I received a 260, I was still eligible to waive into 5 or 6 other states.
Aha.
So essentially, I did pass.
You did pass. And that's the point of this interview, folks. Okay. It's taken us, 15 minutes to get here, but this is what I really wanted to share with you. In that moment, Julie, when you saw that it wasn't 266, you're understandably disappointed. But now you see 260, and you were smart enough to know that the original strategy going in was we're aiming for 266, but we're going to be happy with 260 or better, right? I mean, we had talked about that as a real possibility. And so this is a weird thing because typically we think of bar exams as you pass or you fail, nothing in between.
Right.
But with the UBE, we've got something very different going on here. So you didn't get the New York part, but with a 260, Missouri's open to you. I forget all the other states, but I think there are 5 or 6.
Dakota, yeah.
Yeah.
North Dakota, Minnesota.
Minnesota, that's one of them. Yeah, right.
New Mexico, Alabama.
Okay. So now the cool part of the UBE is that you take your scores. I'm going to get to the bad part in a minute. The good part is you get to take your scores and you get to apply right over to those jurisdictions, right? Here I am. Here's my score. I can waive in. The bad part is you got to pay a fee, right?
Yes, pay a
Yeah,
fee, go through the entire character and fitness process again, do the fingerprints,
yeah,
all
oh,
of that good
yeah.
stuff.
And you're in that process right now, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're not a member of the Missouri Bar as we saw today, but you will be. And we're going to get that picture. I know you're going to send us that picture where you've got your hand up and you're swearing the oath. What is that going to feel like to you when you've done that? When you go to Missouri and you take the oath?
It'll feel real because as of right now, I never even said anything on Facebook. I've told a few people, I didn't pass New York, but I'm waving in. I did pass the UBE.
Right.
So it's difficult because I didn't pass the jurisdiction I wanted, but I did pass the UBE. So
Yeah. Well,
it's
I think that
weird.
cat's going to be out of the bag now, Julie. These videos
Yeah,
get a lot of views.
that's true.
um, uh, but see, here's the point that I really want to make. I think, and I said this to Julie before we went live today. I think we should be celebrating this success. This is a success. You passed a bar exam. You will be a member of the bar, and with your Missouri bar license and practice for a period of years, you can waive in a bunch of places.
Right.
Um, and if you wanted to sit for the Florida bar again, God forbid that should happen, but if you did, you would be going in as a member of the bar, not as someone who's, it's a, all or nothing,
Right.
situation. We've had the chance to work with a number of people in the last couple of years who've had exactly that circumstance and who've gone back to take a bar, whether it's Florida or California, New York, whatever it is, with the bar membership now tucked under their belt and going, oh, this felt different. I mean, it's just, that part is over. And so I want to just use your story to encourage people who are thinking, oh man, what should I do? Was it in retrospect, are you glad you did it this way, that you went to New York and did the UBE?
Absolutely. In a way, I kind of wish I would have done the UBE first.
Yeah, yeah. I think it might have been better for you under the circumstances. And truthfully, do you expect anyone's going to ask, did you take the New York bar, fail, and then waive in to Missouri? You expecting that question often?
No, I'm just hoping it doesn't get called into question with my character and fitness
Oh,
of,
it
oh,
won't.
hey,
It
yeah,
won't. That
okay,
I'm pretty sure.
good,
No,
good.
they're gonna look at it and go, yeah, that no problem. And I
Okay.
know you to be a person of high character, so I don't think we've got any problem there. But I think the real key is that you can celebrate that you actually have made this goal happen, and now you can start moving forward, right? I mean, there are things that you would like to do as a member of the bar, and where it doesn't matter where you are. I mean, you're not moving to Missouri, correct?
Mm-mm.
I mean, you
As far as
could.
I know, no.
Yeah, you could. I mean, but we've had people who've waved into Minnesota and they didn't move to Minnesota or Missouri or North Dakota or some of these other states,
Hmm.
and they're able to do the work they want to do, and that's really the key, isn't it? Is just having the job opportunities and the prospects in your career. Well, what advice would you give someone who is kind of feeling that discouragement that you had through the process? What would you say to them at this stage?
Don't give up. Like, mope as much as you need to. Give it those 2 weeks or so,
Mm-hmm.
but pick yourself back up. You didn't go to law school for no reason. You went to law school because you want to be an attorney. And if you apply yourself, you follow the methods, you let it go, you'll succeed.
Yeah, and I think that people can really take comfort in knowing that sometimes the direct path isn't the only. It's not the only path, and there's other ways to get to the goal. Right? You know,
Right.
if I were looking for an attorney, I think I would want someone who perseveres, who fights, who doesn't give up. I think I'm looking for Julie Miller. I'm looking for that person who just says, I'm going to grind my way through it. There may be some hardships. I think you had every bad thing that could have happened to you on that second try in Florida happen.
Yeah.
And it's an unfair result in that sense. And yet, you did mope and you were really disappointed and really frustrated. And that's always a point where I think, is somebody going to give up or not? And you just really decided to grind and get in there and go for it and continue using the skills. I mean, I'm really thrilled that you used photo reading all the way through. You stayed with it. You got better and better and better at it. And listen, folks, a 260 is nothing to sneeze at. That's a darn good score. And so, we know that this will work if you just give yourself the chance, and you gave yourself the chance there. So I'm really proud of you, and I want to say that publicly. I've said it to you privately, but I want to say publicly how proud I am of you for not giving up and for sticking with it. And it must feel, I know it's a little weird because you haven't sworn in yet, but it must feel like a big burden is off of you. Like, oh my God, I don't have to study for the bar anymore.
Yeah, because it felt like every time a result would come out, it's like, oh, I have to do this again. Oh, I have to do this again. So it was like a continuous study process. And now it's nice to be able to come home, go work out, do something of that sort, and not have to focus on studying all over again.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, the great thing is you're young, you've got a great career ahead of you, you've got a lot that you're going to be able to do. I think this is going to be very exciting to see what you do and how you do it. And I really do want to get that picture of you getting sworn in. I think that's going to be a great keepsake for everybody. So I really appreciate you coming on today. I know it's not easy to talk about when everything isn't rainbows and unicorns. But I do know that your story will resonate with a lot of people, and it will encourage and inspire a lot of people. And I think the strategy you took was so smart, and not just because it was my strategy, but it just, in your case, it just worked out really to be a good strategy. So I'm glad we could share that with other people today. And I suspect there may be some people thinking, maybe that's what I should be doing. So there you go, right? Anything else you want to share with our audience before we finish up today? You're good? All right.
Just don't give up.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, don't give up. That's it, man. Don't give up. Keep grinding, keep working, right?
yes, absolutely.
Great. Well, Julie, thanks so much for being with us. It's been fun to see you and catch up with you. And thanks to all of you in the audience for sharing your time with us today. And I know that all of you join me in congratulating Julie and looking forward to great success. So we'll say goodbye for now. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.